Hello, and welcome to Shotgun Academy Online and the Shotgun Basics training course. This course is ideal for novices and those of you interested in learning to shoot and apply for a shotgun certificate. The content is theoretical and technical, designed to provide you with a basic rounded knowledge of shotguns and shooting. We will cover the essential information to get you started on what we like to call a life skill. Being safe around shotguns and knowing the law will help you and support your application to own a shotgun yourself. We'll also look at the design of a shotgun and the key principles you need to adopt to achieve successful shooting. So when COVID restrictions subside, you'll be in great shape to book a coaching lesson and get hands-on tuition. If you're going to take the test following this short video course, then the answers are all on the slides or in my narration. Good luck. Here goes. Well, safety should be common sense, but you do need that extra diligence when handling a shotgun. It's a big responsibility. Simply put, there are actions you just should never take when handling a shotgun. You never point a gun loaded or unloaded at any person or in an unsafe direction. The sport has etiquette as well as some very hard and fast common sense. Never, never, never. It's not appropriate to put down a shotgun loaded or unloaded and leave it unattended. Attempt to shoot unless you're steady on your feet. Don't do it. Always make sure that you're balanced. Don't shoot near power lines and don't play with the triggers. Only go to pull the trigger when you're ready to shoot. There's a few did you knows during the course of today's lesson, and here's one: that a semi-automatic shotgun that you'll learn about, it can take 3 cartridges, generally speaking. However, at most clay shooting grounds, it's better to just load 2. PPE. Your ears and eyes are very, very delicate and they need to be protected. So it's a good habit to always wear PPE. Note the break action shotguns in the picture are all safe because they're open and empty, and they're held in what we call the T grip. The top right hand corner, you'll see the gentleman holding a semi-automatic shotgun, and he's holding it correctly, upright, barrels pointing skywards, and he's got in there an orange flag into the breech, which shows that it's in a safe situation. It cannot be discharged in that position. Did you know, for example, that a single loud gunshot can cause irreparable damage? So there's just not worth taking the risk. Muzzle awareness. The muzzle is the end of the barrels where the shot comes out. The shot being the shot that you're making, but also the shot is the lead pellets that come from the cartridge, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But the muzzles, the end of the barrels, you need to be aware where your barrels are pointing at all times, even when it's open is what we prefer. Get into the habit of knowing where they're pointing, and that will help you in your just overall approach to safety. You can see there the break action on the right hand side. If you have to pass that gun to a colleague, then you should always open it, hand it to them stock first, so they can immediately see down the barrels to see that there's no blockages in there. With the semi-automatic, as we saw with the gentleman in the picture, the flag goes into the breech, making it safe with the barrels pointing up. When you get a shotgun coaching lesson, then obviously you can manage this yourself. The coach will give you the gun for you to practice this so you get used to handling the gun. The shotgun certificate, you're going to hear me say this quite a lot today, is a very, very important document. It needs to be signed in ink, but it allows you to purchase a shotgun, to transfer one, and also to buy cartridges once you're 18 years of age. You can have a shotgun certificate much earlier than that, but you need to be 18 to buy the cartridges. If, for example, you were to have a theft of a shotgun, you need to advise the authorities, which would be your firearms inquiry officer from your local constabulary. You need to advise them as soon as possible. A transfer or sale of a shotgun needs to happen within 7 days. 72 hours is the period of time that you're allowed to loan a shotgun from a colleague without advising the authorities, which is a very useful rule indeed. You can need a cabinet. The cabinet needs to be affixed to a solid wall and discreetly out of sight. But what about the keys? If you've got a lock version with keys, then the trick is that only you, as the certificate holder, are allowed to know where those keys are kept. Your spouse or partner or mother, father, anybody else in the family cannot know where the keys are and have access to that cabinet. And that is very, very strict. When you apply for your certificate, obviously you're a person of good character, but good reason for shooting, like you want to take up competitive sporting clays, or you want to do it socially with your friends, shooting at clay targets, or you're going to be out in the field with good reason. Public safety, there's going to be no threat there. You need to be a UK resident, and 2 references are required. Well, it says what it says. Armed trespass is very, very serious. Once you have your shotgun, you need to be very careful with it and where you go with it. Even moving a shotgun around, you need to be, again, discreet, keep the gun in a slip, out of sight. If you have to stop for whatever reason in your vehicle, it's highly recommended not to leave the gun in its entirety in the car. Detach the forend. We'll talk about that shortly in some other slides, and take the certificate with you as well. 50 feet is a law in this country. It's the Highways Act of 1988, where in England and Wales, you are not allowed to discharge a firearm within 50 feet of a highway. There's a similar law in Scotland, dated a lot later, about 95. Section 11.6 is a great subsection of the 1968 Firearms Act. And what a Section 11.6 does is it's where a shooting ground or an area designated for shooting of inanimate targets, which is generally clay pigeons, has been approved by your local firearms inquiry officer in the local constabulary. And what they've done is they've assessed that the clay fallout from the broken clays and the missed clays and the lead fallout from the lead shot that's been fired from the shotguns has all landed in a safe area. But note, this is for inanimate targets only. This is not for live quarry. But Section 11.6 also allows you to shoot without a certificate, and it allows you to learn to shoot as you're applying for your certificate, or as you can try with your coach and learn about the sport. That's a very useful aspect of this. You will obviously have supervision. And the Section 11.6 allows a shooting ground to operate for 28 days without planning permission. So it's a very useful, so that's more than twice a month during the course. And a lot of shooting grounds will operate under the 28-day rule. These are different parts of the shotgun. The forend, as you can see there under the barrels, and the stock and the action combine, and they're the 3 parts that you can easily dismantle the gun into. And as we said, you could take the forend with you and your certificate if you needed to leave the gun discreetly in the car. But let's define a shotgun. In the United Kingdom, the barrels need to be smooth. The barrels need to be over 24 inches. So you may have heard in movies or stories about a sawn-off shotgun. Well, that's where they cut the barrels. The criminals, let's say, are cutting the barrels down to under 24 inches. It's no longer defined as a shotgun. It's actually defined as a firearm. The size of the bore, if it exceeds 2 inches, again, it's no longer a shotgun by definition. and 2 inches is really rather big. And you may also have seen on YouTube where there will be guns looking like a Tommy gun, where they have a revolving chamber underneath the action and shooting lots and lots of shotgun cartridges in a short space of time. That's a magazine and revolver style. That again is not a shotgun in this country. We've got most standard types, as you can see there, over and under, side by side, semi-automatic, which you've seen, and the pump action, which is similar to a semi-automatic, but the hand pumps the cartridge up into the breech after the shot. Here's a little closer look at the action. Let's not forget it's a 400-year-old design. You've got there the safety catch, which must not be relied on 100% of the time. The top lever is what opens the gun to allow you to break it. The safety, when the gun is closed, it locks the trigger. It does not lock the firing mechanism. Moving over to the left, we can see there the hammer, which holds the firing pin, and that's what hits the primer in the cartridge. The chamber and the forcing cone, we load the cartridge into the chamber, and the forcing cone allows the cartridge to open and then forces the pellets from the cartridge down into the true bore of the barrel. And if, for example, the firing pin and it hits the cartridge but nothing happens, then that's what we call a misfire. And we have a specific procedure for that. And what we do then is we'll bring the gun down from our shoulder and we'll put it to our waist for make it more comfortable, pointing down range safely. And then we'll wait a few seconds because there may be a hang fire. It may be where the firing pin has hit the primer and it's just smoldering and it may still go off, which is what we call a hang fire. We wait 20 to 30 seconds and then we'll open the gun and we'll remove and destroy the errant cartridge. So it's a good procedure to have, and your coach will help you with this when you have a hands-on lesson. If when you take hold of a gun, it feels loose or anything, or has dents in it or something like that, don't shoot. It's not to be, oh, it'll be okay. No, if it's feeling loose or it's rattling or there's something that, you know, is not quite right, you feel, then do not shoot. Always be on the safe side. A little bit more detail about the cartridges here. Just the profile there, a very famous picture. The primer is going to make the propellant expand dramatically, which is why the brass head is there to hold that pressure and help push that pressure forward. So the wadding there, this is a plastic wad. There are other types of wad, mainly a fiber wad, which is biodegradable. And you can see the cup, and it will push that wadding down through the barrels, carrying the pellets to leave the barrel, the muzzle of the gun. There's a lot of expansion, a lot of thrust when that propellant goes forward. So we have to be very careful which cartridges go into which barrels. Another very, very famous picture from, I think 30, 40 years ago is the one here. Years and years ago, all 20-bore cartridges used to be yellow and all 12-bore cartridges used to be red. That's changed a little bit now with marketing, but you can see where the damage can be done. A smaller cartridge can get lodged in the barrels, and if a larger cartridge comes behind it and is fired, it is catastrophic. So that's another reason why we're always checking our barrels for blockages. Even mud or snow or a leaf or insects can cause a pressure change within the barrels. So we always make sure our barrels are clear. So what about bore? We've mentioned there 12 bore and 20 bore, and there's a difference, but how did those sizes come about? Well, as you can see, the design of a shotgun is 400 years old and more. And how they did it back then, the gunsmiths would take a pound of lead and create 12 identical spherical balls to create the bore size. They did the same thing with 20, 16, 28, and accordingly, the bore was either narrower or wider. Interestingly enough, in America, they call it gauge. We call it bore. But interestingly, the 410 shotgun has a barrel diameter of 0.410 inches. It does not subscribe to that old famous way of determining bore. Your primary concern with a shotgun is that it fits you. We talked about the stock with the heel and the toe and the comb and the butt. Also here, the barrels, the length of the barrels are going to change the weight and the balance of the gun. The primary concern is the gun fits you. Then we look at your budget, and then we look at what you want in the looks and the brand of the gun. But the primary thing is that it fits you, and the size of the bore will have an effect on that, because obviously that's going to be part of the weight of the balance of the gun. Chokes and patterns. It's a very complicated and fascinating subject. And at this stage of your shooting and shotgun career, it's good to understand the basics. That's what we're here for now. But it can get very complicated. In a cylinder choke, number one, it creates the widest pattern. And if you can imagine all of those pellets in the cartridge, when they leave the gun, they're going to create what we call a pattern. And all of those pellets are going to spread out a little bit, and they're going to go through, say, something the size of a hula hoop. And that's what we call the pattern. And as you choke down, number two, number three, to say a full choke, which will give you the tightest pattern, which means that the pattern of the pellets coming out of the barrel will go through a circle, say, smaller than a hula hoop, say the size of a dustbin lid, something like that. And that will be a tighter pattern, like a garden hose where you squeeze it and it becomes a little bit more tighter. It will not increase distance like a hose does. It will only give you a tighter pattern, and that's often used on a second barrel if you're shooting at the same target twice, having missed the first one. So understand chokes. Always make sure the chokes are tight, so they're safe when you are shooting, and be aware of what chokes you have in your gun. Normally on an over and under, you might have improved on the top and full at the bottom. It's good to understand them, but take your time learning more and more about them. Here's a did you know. Shooting on a clay shooting ground, traditionally you cannot shoot more than 28 grams. 28 grams is the weight of the lead in the cartridge, and 6 is the size of the pellet. As you go a higher number, the pellet gets smaller. So a pellet 9 is a lot smaller than a 6. A pellet 4 is a lot bigger than a 6. Eye dominance. Well, this is a very favorite subject of many shotgun coaches, including myself. I picked out these pictures on the right-hand side because what they show you is where somebody is determined to hold the gun on the right-hand side, but in fact it's their left eye which is more dominant. The handedness is not as important as the eye dominance. And as you can see there, the famous actor on the right, Burt Lancaster, is looking down that gun with his left eye. And so too is the gentleman with the glasses there. But what we have is on the right-hand side, we have a young man. We're not wearing PPE here for the purposes of taking this photograph. And you can see that he's got a dominant right eye looking down the rib and the barrels, and he's got a good gun mount there, and his stance you can see, and it's giving him this perfect alignment. So wherever he moves that gun is where he will be looking, but more importantly, everywhere he looks is where the gun will point. And he will be having his eye just over the rib like it is on the left-hand sketch at the top. So here's a little exercise you can do yourself. Say, for example, you're right-handed, raise your left arm, point with your index finger at, say, something 12 yards away. And with that, open both eyes, focus on what you're pointing at, and then close your left eye. If your finger stays in line with the object you're pointing at, then the chances are you are right eye dominant. If there's movement of your finger and the object, then that's going to denote that you're going to be left eye or center vision or something like that. There's many different ways of looking at it. We can get more technical with right to center, left to center. Your coach will be able to do this for you and prove it to you so that you can see where your eye dominance is. And that will help you with your gun mount and lead to better shooting. Very, very important. Stance, like any good sportsman, you need balance. Like we said earlier, if you're unbalanced and cannot see the target, don't shoot. But shoulder width apart, 2 o'clock is a good alignment for a shooter off the right-hand shoulder. It can adjust. It could be 5 to 2, 5 past 2. You will develop with your shotgun coach an authentic shooting style. And it will help to start like this and work forward that you're leaning in like a tennis player does or a squash player. And that balance, the weight going a little bit forward, what we like to call nose over the toes, and you're leaning into the shot. And your coach will be saying that for you. So there's that balance, movement, and ability, and it's going to balance the gun as well. That's another good thing about stance. With eye dominance and stance, if you're out of balance, many shots are missed because you're out of balance. But even more shots are missed is if you've got an incorrect gun mount. Now, gun fit, as we said earlier, the gun must fit you. It's going to be a combination of the barrels. The longer barrels are heavier, moves the balance, the fulcrum point of the gun, and the length of the stock. And you can see here now in the top left-hand corner, the gentleman there is resting his cheek on the comb, the top of the stock, and the corner, the back there at the butt, that's the heel of the stock at the top, and that's into the shoulder at the pocket. And you can see it's in line with the top of his shoulder, just like it is down on the right-hand side. That's a good gun mount. If the stock is too short, then what's going to happen is that you'll hunch up and you'll lift your head when you're looking to make the shot. And that's not going to help you because your eyes will be looking at the target, but the gun will be pointing somewhere else. And likewise, if the stock is too long, you're going to get caught up in your clothing. It's not going to be a consistent mount. And that's what you want. Good gun fit is going to give you a consistent mount to create a better shooting style. Bottom right-hand corner, you can see the gunman there. He's got his hand is on a pistol grip there, and his nose to his knuckles about 2 to 3 fingers away, and that's a very good gun mount indeed. Don't forget that the best way to check your gun mount before you start shooting is with a professional gun fitter or your academy coach. It's very, very important that you get somebody to look at you rather than trying yourself in the mirror. It's not guesswork. You need to have an objective view from a professional, highly recommended. And then we can get into these recommended shooting techniques. Don't forget, moving target, moving gun. And that's the main thing we need to know. Always in every shot that you make is going to be a pickup point and a breakup point. Well, actually a break point, and you've got to keep the gun moving between the two. How we do it at the Academy is that we get you to focus on the target, the speed that target is traveling, and the distance it is away from you, and the trajectory that it's on, whether it's going across or it's going up. That's the trajectory, the flight of the clay. And it's those 3 factors that you will assimilate to create what we call the lead or the forward allowance to get you to the break point. And that means that you're going to fire your cartridge, and the lead from the cartridge is going to go to the break point and collide with the clay, with the target. So you can see this wonderful shot of the shot string there. This young man is going to break that clay. I've got another picture that shows it being broken, but you can see the propellant coming out the barrels and dissipating into the air. But just ahead of the propellant there is the shot string. That's the pellets of lead coming out of the cartridge. And that shot string there is about 12 to 15 inches long. And it's going through that hula hoop, as we described earlier when we talked about choking and patterns. What's happening there is that that shot string now is heading to the break point because the young man has fired the trigger, he's pulled the trigger, going there, and it's going up and it's going to hit that target as the target comes into the lead. They're going to collide. And that is because he's calculated how fast that clay was going, how far away it was, and what trajectory it was on. So let's do it ourselves now, and you'll see that there's 3 distinct methods of shooting. This is the first. This is the method. It's the most reliable if you have time to establish a good pickup. You move with the target because you've locked your barrels onto the target. You move with the target, and that's helping you reconfirm. A lot happens in a short space of time, but it helps you reconfirm the speed, the distance, and the trajectory of your target. And that allows you then to pull ahead to your break point and pull the trigger. You follow through, keeping the gun moving, bring the gun down, open, eject your cartridges. And that is one of the most reliable methods of shooting. Hence, it's called the method. However, if the clay is moving at such a speed, or you haven't yet achieved all of the experience to achieve the method, then this is probably what you're going to be shooting initially. And it's called swing through. Some exponents call it smoke trail and talk about spaceships and rocket ships and vapor trails, but we like to stick to the technical side of things here at the Academy. And your pickup point, you're actually going to see the clay go past your barrels. And then what you're going to do, again, assimilating speed, distance, trajectory, you're going to swing the gun through to your break point, pulling your trigger at the break point, following through, and that will then bring the gun down, open the cartridges. But as you can see there, the movement of the gun still goes through the target, and you're conscious of how fast it's going and how far away it is. And this is the third most recommended, most common technique for shooting, and it's called maintained lead. Obviously, because the target never passes the barrels. The barrels are always in front. Is a visual pickup point. You're picking up the target. You're setting your barrels off ahead of the target. You're always going to be in front of the target. But as you gauge, you got it, speed, distance, trajectory. You're moving your barrels to the break point, pulling the trigger, keep the gun moving, following through, bring your gun down, eject the cartridges. Nice, safe, smooth. There's a rhythm to it, and you'll get that with your coach. And that's the exciting part about it. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed your short video course on shotgun basics. I hope you take the test now. There's 25 questions and 90% correct, and you'll be able to download your certificate straight away. Good luck.